But yeah, so today we're talking about 1988's film On the Silver Globe. And that date, 1988, is a little interesting in this regard because in the trailer, it showed that the film was started and then it was halted by the Polish government. And so the filmmaker, he was not allowed to complete the film, and then they had him they wanted to destroy the film because they thought it was some propaganda, anti-government propaganda. They had him destroy the film and say, okay, we're not going to make it. And then after some of that conflict in the country had settled, they invited him back to finish it. But at that point, like, he had filmed so much of it, and yeah, so the film that is presented that you can find a copy of, it is 80% of the film, and the other 20% is just the director voicing over the narrative of what would happen in those moments if it was filmed. So it is very much an incomplete film, but it still works. And during those incomplete moments, he just has random B-roll of like locations that they would have filmed in, or locations that they did film in the movie, or just locations that he just wants to get the feel of. And those moments in the movie where he's doing those voiceovers are the moments in the movie that are the easiest to follow. Yes, it's incomplete. So there, he says at the very beginning of whatever copy you can find, I assume, that this movie is incomplete. He goes into a bit of the conflict that happened, and he says, okay, during these incomplete moments, I'm going to give this voiceover and kind of explain some contextual information for you. So yeah, at the very end, he explains some things as well in regards to just what happened with the film and everything, kind of like a closing monologue to just, it kind of felt like a director's commentary in a way, because there was a lot of contextual information provided in his pre-movie and post-movie blurb. That's just a part of the whole package that is. So it is based on a trilogy, I believe, called the Lunar Trilogy. I don't really know much about them, so I won't say too much there, but it was a trilogy that was made in around 1900. Big Polish, novel trilogy that was very popular. And so, yeah, there was just a lot of hype and controversy around this film because of how popular those books were as well. And so, yeah, I don't really know too much about the books, but yes, it is an adaptation there. So in this film, it is a sci-fi movie. I'm a very, very big sci-fi fan, and I'm glad I watched this one. It wasn't necessarily my cup of tea so we'll go into spoiler-free talk about the actual movie and the content now. The movie is very difficult to follow. It is very difficult to follow in two ways. One, in that the way they speak is very poetic, very allegorical. You could relate it to a bit to Shakespearean, but it has its own unique just way of the dialogue is very unique and poetic and self-reflexive, and all the characters go off on long tangents, almost like asides of just what they're feeling and all their emotions in that moment. Yeah, just all throughout the film this happens, which makes following it a bit difficult because it's going on. It's like so much is going on in this movie. It's very dense, and it's very hard to follow and dissect every single line that is said because of how fast everything is going. You can definitely still understand what's happening in the plot, but again, secondly, the plot is still cut together a little confusingly. Is that a word? I don't know. It's still confusing the way that it is edited together because it does jump to different places and different time periods within the narrative without explicitly stating what's happening as well. Because, yeah, as you can see here from the logline, a small group of cosmic explorers leave Earth to find freedom and start a new civilization. I believe there's about like 3 minutes maybe of stuff on a spaceship, but a lot of it, because we do go back to Earth at some points in this movie, or what we think might be Earth, and there is no like specific line, no specific visual that tells us where we are and what's happening. And again, this movie is an epic. Honestly, you can relate a lot of the themes to 2001: A Space Odyssey, because these people, they're going on to this new planet to start a new civilization, and the grandiose, just like the scale of everything that they're doing and building up their civilization and the society is you can relate it to 2001, going from like the apes to like the futuristic and just like talking about the evolution of man. And this is kind of like the evolution of man, but like their psyche and just like how they would mentally think about just like their worldview if they were dropped off in this place, just like them, bare bones. Because basically what happens, it's very minor spoiler here because, yeah, these astronauts, they land, this small group of cosmic explorers, as it says, lands on this new planet. And I mean, yeah, they're kind of going crazy. Everyone in this movie is kind of just going insane because, yeah, a few of them die. A few of them are just like going insane from what's happening. And then eventually we have some offspring and then a whole civilization sprouts. And like this movie spans quite a long time period. And yeah, so we get to see like the start of a new civilization. I'll go into spoilers a bit more in a second about what actually happens with this civilization. But in general, if I'm telling you if you should watch the movie or if you shouldn't watch the movie, I'll say that it's one of those movies. There's a certain classification of movie which are just like very dreamlike, very surreal, hard to follow, but you can tell that there's a lot going on beyond the surface. We talked about A Field in England 2 weeks ago. I think you could definitely relate this one to that movie. I think I did like this one a bit more just because like the sci-fi package and just the commentary on just humanity and the civilizations falling and rising and everything. I really, really dug those aspects. But if you're not in the mood for some heavy dialogue that's very allegorical and metaphorical, I would steer clear. But some of the visuals in this movie, though, are just worth watching alone because, yeah, you can get a sense of what's going on kind of through the visuals, and they're just insane at points. Like, yeah, the way this movie was filmed is absolutely crazy. The scope of everything that's going on is, yeah, it's crazy. The way they use color, like some of the colors are just so starkly like interesting in this movie. Just the way it's used is so interesting. And yeah, I mean, look at this poster and look at this like banner here. I feel like you kind of get the vibe so much from what is marketed here on Letterboxd. It really does say a lot about the movie, and like it's not going to be something that's easy to digest and analyze right away, but I definitely think it is worth watching in the end. And also, the performances were also just incredible across the board. I'll say that as well. And so going to a bit more spoilers here. Like I said, they kind of start this new civilization on this planet, and it like the plot, just like if you strip it down to bare bones and you tell me, okay, this movie is about these explorers, they go to space, they find this new planet, they're kind of stranded on this planet, they're going insane, they have offspring, and they start this new civilization. And I mean, like halfway through less than halfway through the movie, like this new civilization has like probably 100 people in there. And they have like this throwaway line where it's like, oh, people age faster on this planet. So it's like, okay, I guess that's a reason for them to have this civilization happen more quickly. And very incestual, by the way. But whatever, we'll look past that. Yeah, so they have this new civilization that has started. And the most interesting aspect of the film to me is that once this new civilization started, there is one of the three main astronauts who landed on this planet who survived the longest. One of them dies off fairly quickly. The other one has become seen as the fertile mother, and she has been the mother to a lot of the people in this new civilization. And she was a figure in the community for quite some time, but eventually she did pass away. And then we're left with this one last guy who's known as the Old Man. And the Old Man eventually, as time goes on, and the memories and the stories of these three people have been more forgotten, they start to develop some weird depictions of who this old man is and how this civilization came to be. Because if you think about it, they vastly outnumber the people who are actually from Earth and came over here. And if the old man is the only one left to actually tell them and inform them of where they come from, there's going to be a lot of like just nonsense thrown about. And it's really, really cool to see just the development of the civilization's philosophical views of the world. Because again, they begin to see this old man as this deity or this prophet of what happened. But then there is that doubt that is instilled upon the civilization, and that eventually comes back because eventually the old man, he does pass away, and then we have, so what happens is they send these tapes that they were filming of this new planet back to Earth. And eventually, when it gets back to Earth, this one astronaut from Earth is like, okay, I've seen these tapes. I'm going to go come and figure out what happened. And also, sidebar, those tapes are kind of shown throughout the film where we're kind of mingled with the regular cinematography, some handheld, like mockumentary style cinematography. And those moments were really, really cool. I really, really dug what word am I looking for? The intertwining of the mockumentary style in this, because in the movie they have these cameras and they're like filming each other just to like they're like, oh, we have to document what's happening. And it was really, really cool to see. And so this other astronaut comes, and again, because he's from Earth, he came down in this spaceship. He's seen as this prophet as well. And most of the doubt, or like the strongest bit of doubt that the civilization had is, it's more towards this guy compared to the old man, because they see this guy coming in and he tells these stories, and then they start to realize he's more human, and they're doubting his divine nature. And then, I mean, eventually in the end, they kind of just like crucify him. They put him up on this, they put him on this crucifix pretty much. And they totally torment him and murder him. But man, it was just so cool to see the evolution of this civilization, and how religion is just such a natural thing that occurs when this civilization sprouts. And when humans are less advanced, they're naturally going to search for answers. And religion is such a clear-cut answer to go to if we were in their place, and it rationalizes some of the things that they're doing, because you're never really like thinking, oh, these people are acting irrationally by the way they're treating like the old man or this new astronaut that comes. They have their doubts, and they have their new culture that has happened, and it's just the world that he's created in this movie is so cool. It is really, really cool. I can't state that enough. And I also didn't talk about like one of the most sci-fi elements in the entire movie is across the ocean, they go to war with this like bird crow-like species who are the natives on the planet, and they've been there forever. And there's some really, really cool scenes with them as well. And one of the scenes that I remember is like, the new astronaut that comes down, he has one of the crows like tied up, and they have this like eye on their head. It's kind of just like this LED light that's just kind of like blinking. And that's how they talk through the visual. And so he's kind of like mind control talking to him and like tormenting him. And that scene was really, really cool. But overall, honestly, it's really hard for me to get past the dialogue in this movie, because it is so deep. And I see why it's adapted from a novel, because I feel like so many people, they study Shakespeare in school, and like the English teachers, they're so in it, and you have to analyze like every line of what's happening. There's even some versions of Shakespeare where it's like you get the actual version of whatever's written, and then you have like a translation to just normal nomenclature to try to figure out what's actually happening. So I could definitely see this as a novel, whereas you can like take your time and read it at your own pace and figure out what every line is meaning, and like how impactful it is, because again, like I said, it's very fast paced. A lot of the lines, they just go over my head, but some of the ones that I was able to like sit down and just have a second to think about more, I really, really dug. And it's a movie you're gonna have to think, because again, it's not spoon feeding you anything in terms of narrative or lines or what's going on, but like the feeling, the visuals, and just like the emotions that the characters are feeling are there. You can see it with their performances, and just with some of the some of the lines you can get the feel of what they're feeling. And so it's just it's such an interesting movie. And like the history behind it makes it that much more interesting, just even though it's such an interesting movie on its own. And yeah, like I said, those moments where the director provided commentary were the easiest to follow because he doesn't use any of this allegorical language. He just like plainly says what's happening with the characters, very very bare bones. And so it was honestly kind of refreshing to have those moments where he would talk about this and you're like, okay, okay, now I know exactly where they're going, what's happening, blah blah blah. Know a bit of the motivations here. And so yeah, it was such an interesting movie with crazy crazy visuals. The scope of it was so cool. And yeah, just the whole evolution of the civilization is just comparable to 2001 with the epic scope of it. And yeah, I can't give it enough props for just the ambitiousness of it. I feel like if it was a movie with maybe easier dialogue to follow, I think that it would be like I would absolutely eat this movie up and I would love it. So, but in general, I really, really did love thinking about it, and enjoying it or watching it was tough, but I got through it because it is very long as well. So I always remember the first time I saw 2001. It was a rainy Sunday afternoon and it was randomly on television. And that's how you saw 2001. Wow. Yeah, I think I've seen it once, but I studied a bit in school as well, so we watched a bunch of clips. But man, oh, I love 2001 so much. Honestly, the scenes with the apes in 2001 are like some of my favorite parts. No dialogue. You don't need dialogue just to see exactly what's happening. It's just pure, you see it and you know what's happening. And that's just good filmmaking. But yeah, it's a sci-fi. This one on the Silver Globe, I think, is a sci-fi classic, really. It says 1988 here, but I believe it was assembled in 88 and filmed in 77, so it's a bit older than 88. And I mean, yeah, this director, Andrei Zulawski. Oh, I don't want to say it wrong. I already did, though. I've heard Possession's great. I really, really want to watch Possession. I have a few friends who have seen it and have all given it quite high praise, so I'll definitely put that atop my list at the moment. Yeah, show not tell. That's exactly what I meant to say, but I didn't have the words to express it, which was a little ironic, but you got the gist of it. But yeah, he seems like a great director. I'm excited to watch Possession and on the Silver Globe. So interesting. So interesting. Yeah, it's oh man. It was a tough watch. I did watch it. I paused it, I believe, like 3 times throughout the movie. Went to do a few other things and then came back to it. But man, it's a crazy one.